Let's talk about the FITT acronym. So this is F-I-T-T. Now this is something I learned when I did my first fitness instructor's course back in 1999, and I've been using it ever since, and I still use it now with my clients and with my own training. It hasn't changed. Basically what it stands for is the first F stands for frequency. So this refers to how often somebody trains, which could be, referring to how many times they train in a week, a month, a year. But typically, we focus on a week. The I is intensity, and this refers to how hard somebody's working. If we're talking about cardio, we tend to think about what percentage of their maximum heart rate, or what number on the RPE scale, how out of breath somebody's getting. If we're talking about lifting, resistance training, then it's how close to their one repetition max are they training? Are they at 100% of their one rep max, 90%, 80%? Or again, we can still use RPE for resistance training. So, how many reps have they got left in the tank? Have they got 1 rep left in the tank, 2 reps? So I is about intensity, which is how hard we're training. The first T is the time, and that's referring to how long we train for. That could be the entire session or the component. So whether it's for the main cardiovascular component, or for the resistance training component, or just the whole session. It's a 30-minute session, 45, 60-minute session. And then the last T is referring to the type of training. Are we carrying out interval training? If we're talking about cardio, is it steady state training or fartlek training? When it comes to resistance, are we using barbells? Are we using dumbbells? Are we using resistance machines? So T is the type of training that we're doing. Now the reason this acronym is useful is because we use it when we're trying to progress a training program or regress a training program. So over time, if we want to continue getting these adaptations and gains and get more and more results, then we need to progress. So what we can do is we can progress the frequency, or we can progress the intensity, or we can progress the time, or we can choose a more superior type of training. So think about frequency. Now, if somebody's training 7 days a week, can we progress that? No, we can't. They're training every single day. We can't add another day, and there's only 7 days in the week. So what we do is we tend to pick the component that we think, well, one should be progressed, because if someone's only training once a week, then we'd be looking to try and increase that, get them training more regularly. But also, it comes down to that individual and what fits into their life, and what stage of readiness they're at, whether they want to actually progress that area. So that comes into it too. So frequency, we can always add another day of training, providing there's a day left in the week. Intensity, we may look at increasing intensity. Again, it depends, because if somebody's working at 100% maximal intensity, then we can't go higher than that. 100% is the maximum. And actually, in training, we don't tend to go to 100% anyway, because that's reserved for competitions and assessments. If we want to keep coming back and training each day, we can't go flat out. But it might be when you first start training, you're only working at sort of 60% of your max. You've adapted to that. It's pretty comfy now. So we push the heart rate up a little bit more and get you working a little bit harder. So we can progress the intensity somewhat. Then the third one, the time. Let's say when you first start training, you manage to fit 2 30-minute sessions into your week, and you've adapted to that, and you're enjoying it. It's all going well. Think, well, actually, I could probably squeeze in another 30 minutes. So that would be a sensible progression there, is actually, let's get another 30-minute session in. The last one, type. Maybe you started off just doing body weight movements when it comes to your strength exercises, and you haven't as yet started lifting. You've got some good movement patterns, so let's now add in some resistance. So we could progress you from just doing some body weight movements, some lower intensity body weight movements, on to doing some lifting with some dumbbells or some barbells. It might be that with your cardio, you've been doing steady state training, and now we're going to inject some fartlek, so we're going to actually start mixing up the paces in there, or we're going to do some more sort of structured planned interval training. So that's how we use the FITT acronym. I've been using it, like I said, for years and years and years, tried and tested method. Every strength and conditioning coach will use it too, whether they refer to it as the FITT acronym or not. That is what they're going to be doing. That's what a coach has in their arsenal. They can progress frequency, intensity, time, or type. Conversely as well, we can regress. So if we've had a client who's had some time out, or they have had an injury, or perhaps they've been overtraining and we do need to just taper things back a little bit, perhaps prior to competition, then we can do the opposite. We can taper back on the frequency, taper back on the intensity, taper back on the time of the session, or look for some slightly easier types of training. So like I said, progress it or regress it, depending on what's needed.